I'm sure you've seen some of the headlines by now. The 5080 is giving the same performance as a 4080 basically. The 5080 doesn't even beat the 4090, not even close. Some videos even show the 5080 performing basically the same as the actual 4080. I made a video myself about the matter and the 5070 and how the VRAM limitations are severely ruining these cards. Speaking of, an 80 series card with only 16 gigabytes of VRAM in 2025, when most games are already using 16 gigabytes of VRAM or more. In 2025, we're getting a card with 16 gigabytes of VRAM for $2,000. I'm not trying to hate on NVIDIA. In fact, I've always bought NVIDIA cards, but this new generation is the worst I have ever seen, and I've been doing this for over a decade. In fact, I was extremely excited to buy a new 5070. I have been excited about the new ray tracing improvements, and I wanted improved VRAM, but this new generation is just a waste of money to buy. That's not to mention the only selling point, multi-frame generation, was basically a big flop and received more criticism than love. But why does the series suck? What went wrong, and what can we do to fix it? Let's talk about it. I'm Tommy from VecTech, one of the last unbiased PC gaming tech channels on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you want more information like this. Number 1, multi-frame generation was a flop. NVIDIA was really marketing the 50 series cards with multi-frame generation, which is an upgraded version of their current frame generation only available on the 40 series cards and above. Frame generation itself was popular but had many criticisms. The issue is, NVIDIA thought that this multi-frame generation would cause people to buy these cards without thinking twice, but it ended up being a flop and being heavily criticized. The whole problem with frame generation is that it is just making fake frames, right? But these frames are just AI guesses, so if the game has a lot of action going on, the frame generation can often make mistakes and guess wrong. That means the image on your screen will often have a lot of glitches, artifacts, or other issues because the AI guessed wrong. So what's worse than frame generation guessing a couple frames wrong every second? How about multi-frame generation where it can screw up 4 times the frames? In practice, multi-frame generation is a cool concept and works good when it does, but when it gets bad, it's really bad. Look at some of these pictures and videos on screen. These are examples of multi-frame generation just completely ruining the game experience by guessing wrong. Like this Cyberpunk video that I keep referencing is really strange because it has these weird glitches with the DLSS frame generation that are completely noticeable and just awful. It is just so bad that if you saw this, you would probably report it to the game developer as an awful game-breaking glitch. This completely ruins the immersion and then reminds you that your game isn't running fast, it's just using an AI gimmick. So unfortunately, the big selling point ended up being a big flop and receiving a lot of criticism. Number 2, the cards really didn't get a physical upgrade. NVIDIA pushed this multi-frame generation AI gimmick hoping nobody would notice the cards basically didn't get an upgrade at all. Most cards didn't even get a VRAM increase, and most got minimal CUDA core upgrades. CUDA cores are the amount of processing units on the card, so the more the merrier essentially. Typically as new cards come out, we see a big increase in the CUDA cores, and that's where most of the performance comes from. But look at this chart. For most cards that aren't the 5090, there is minimal increase in anything. If you don't have more processing units, how is the card supposed to be faster? I mean seriously, the 5070 only gets 300 more CUDA cores, bringing it to 6,144 CUDA cores. For reference, that's a really bad increase. Most generations, we usually see about 1,000 CUDA cores added even on a bad year. If we're only adding 300 and this thing's already got 6,000, that's basically adding nothing to this card. And remember, all the performance is really coming from these CUDA cores. The more you have, the stronger the card is. Now, I'm sure if you have a 4070 like me, it totally makes sense to upgrade to the 5070, spend another $500 to $600 to get a 1 to 2 FPS increase because this card only has 300 more CUDA cores, which is basically nothing in the grand scheme of it. I mean, honestly, if you overclock the card, it might be better. Number 3, the performance increase is awful. Due to the cards not having much physical improvements, the performance is awful. Typically, on a new generation of cards, we see between 15 to 30% speed improvements. Many benchmarks are showing the 5080 at a mere 4 to 8% over the 4080 Super, and that's in good benchmarks. And at that point, why even buy the new card? Like, look at this Daniel Owen video. The 5080 gets a whole 2 more FPS than the 4080. I did not misspeak, that is 2 FPS. 2 whole FPS for $1,600. Now, if you were me, I would just tell you to just overclock your 4080. You're gonna see the same performance increase, but you're gonna save $1,600, and it's free. The only real improvements are on the 5090, but it's using crazy power consumption, so it honestly doesn't count. Some sources say the 5090 is pulling nearly 600 watts under load, so I mean, you better get a 2,000 watt power supply if you want your computer to run without starting on fire. Sure, people thought the 4090 was bad at 400 watts under load, but for the top of the line card, that isn't surprising. But 600 watts? No wonder the 5090 is faster. It's using 50% more electricity than the 4090 is. In my opinion, the 5090 isn't special. If you somehow got the 4090 running at 600 watts, it would be almost as competitive to the 5090 just because it's got all that power behind it. Number 4, severe VRAM limitations. I have never seen VRAM limitations generations is bad. And guys, I was around for the 2015 NVIDIA 970 debacle where they gave 3.5 gigabytes of VRAM and lied and said it was 4. Guys, I was there for that, and this whole generation doesn't even come close to whatever that debacle was. I mean, how does the 5080 have so little VRAM? It doesn't even have a VRAM increase from the 4080, and that card was released a couple years ago. 16 gigabytes of VRAM in 2025 is a joke for a nearly $2,000 graphics card, especially considering if you buy the AMD equivalent, it comes with 24 gigabytes of VRAM for like a third of the price. Remember, ray tracing, which is what NVIDIA pushes and literally writes on the side of their cards, uses a ton of VRAM, and since consoles have nearly 15 gigabytes of VRAM, most games are being built with that target in mind. So if you have a 5080 with 16 gigabytes of VRAM and you turn on ray tracing, you might not even be able to use the ray tracing as the game normally uses 15 gigabytes of VRAM. And don't even think about the ray tracing if you have less than 12 gigabytes of VRAM. That will be a big mistake. The game might just crash on you. Like, unfortunately, I am experiencing in Indiana Jones. I'm trying to use the ray tracing and I have to turn all the settings down because for some reason my $600 graphics card just isn't capable in 2025. Doesn't even make sense. But so the 5090 has 32 gigabytes of VRAM, but the 5080 only has half of that. It doesn't even make sense. People are buying AMD cards from years ago with more VRAM than a $1,600 NVIDIA graphics card. And game developers are confused too. They're trying to make games look better and use more VRAM, and they don't understand why a $2,000 graphics card doesn't have VRAM. And VRAM isn't expensive. It's the cheapest part of the card. The only reason NVIDIA isn't adding more is because they want you to be forced to upgrade every year because your card isn't strong enough. So why is this happening? You might be asking me, Tommy, why is this the most disappointing graphics card generation yet? Well, the answer is comparable to what we saw with Intel and AMD years ago. Intel used to be the golden standard of computer CPU processors. If you bought an AMD processor, it was just assumed you couldn't afford the Intel one because the AMD ones just suck so bad they were awful. But Intel did the same thing NVIDIA is doing now. Intel didn't innovate. They just kept releasing the same product every year with minimal upgrades. That slowed down the progression of computer software and gaming immensely. But why? Well, Intel had no competition. There is no incentive or reason for them to spend money researching and developing new powerful chips because literally nobody was competing against them. AMD was so laughably bad, they never had to worry about it. Until it was too late. Now, as you know, AMD chips are seen as a golden standard, and Intel is so far behind their company stock has fallen massively, and many people consider Intel as a failure of a company right now. But the same thing is happening here. AMD is not making graphics cards that really compete with NVIDIA. The ball is in NVIDIA's court. Sure, I think AMD cards are good, but there's no denying it. The best graphics cards are NVIDIA. Back in the day, AMD and NVIDIA both had these huge flagship cards called the AMD Fury and the NVIDIA Titan. They were insanely good graphics cards that both competed head-to-head against each other. This competition meant both companies had to research a ton and develop a ton to keep making money and be the winner. But AMD fell behind until AMD, or I guess Intel, makes graphics cards now too. Until either of them present a card that's even competitive to the 5090, we're going to be stuck like this for a long time. That means every year we're not going to see improvements in the gaming or processing power of computers until AMD or Intel come in and bring some competition to the mix. Now, there have been some rumors, however, that AMD's new cards and new FSR4 technology might actually be good enough to compete with NVIDIA this time around. But I am optimistic AMD can make a comeback so we can finally get a good graphics card from NVIDIA where I'm not having to pay a small fortune just to have enough VRAM to run a video game. Conclusion. So all in all, the 50 series from NVIDIA is awful. I don't recommend buying it. And I say that as someone that was super excited to upgrade as I've wanted to get a new graphics card for a while now, literally a couple years. The multi-frame generation is just a bust and has a lot of problems, and it's just like a big band-aid trying to hide the fact there's no real performance increase on the card. Cards are severely limited in VRAM, the pricing isn't great, and there's no real reason to upgrade at all. There's not really any performance improvement on these cards. As much as I love gaming, spending $2,000 on a graphics card that only has 16 gigabytes of VRAM in 2025 is crazy, and I am not doing that. I really wish we would have gotten a better release. Hopefully AMD can finally put some competition out there. As I said, rumors indicate that AMD could have a very powerful card coming out here, but we will see. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think the 50 series is a good release? I'm Tommy from VecTech, one of the last unbiased and real PC gaming channels on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you'd like more. Thank you, and take care of yourself.